All right, we're back. Tasty Crypto Show. I'm Ryan Grayson. With me today, of course, Dan Cecilia. Dan, how you doing?
Doing awesome. ETH 10 years.
Yeah.
Anniversaries today. If any of you don't know, ETH was launched this date in 2015. Went live in the public. So, yeah, we're enjoying that.
Were you part of the initial ICO?
No.
Were you that early?
No, I was not that early. I don't even consider myself that early in any of this. But hey, we're still here.
Real quick, what's crazy about this, and I think everybody can find this on either the Tasty Crypto YouTube channel or maybe it's on the Tasty Live channel, somewhere on the internet. But there is an early interview with Tom Sosnoff and Vitalik Buterin, and it maybe predates the ICO itself, where I think like even Vitalik is like trying to get Tom, not trying to get him to invest, but saying, hey, you could invest at the time or that early. That's crazy to me, but it's out there if anybody wants to watch that.
I had like a brief conversation with I think Tony about that, and I was like, so what did you guys think? He was just like, why would we need that? And I'm like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I probably would have.
I mean, in hindsight, it's perfect vision, but like
at the time you're like, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard,
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Amazing. Dan, before we get started though, you're on the internet?
I am on the internet.
Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter. My handle's, I'll drop it here. It's
put it in the chat.
Truth.
What up, chat?
Dan C.
There you go. Follow Dan on Twitter for some alpha. I think you usually drop some truth bombs, some good alpha. I like reading your thoughts on there.
I definitely will retweet a lot of things that I find interesting. I use Twitter to do all my research. That's where I find all my crypto research.
Yeah.
That's where I'm early. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, despite the name Truth. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I couldn't get Dan C, so I put the word truth in front of it. So you can follow me there. You can DM me. I'll answer your questions. I'll interact with you. But yeah, that's where I'm on the internet.
Hell yeah. And anyone else that's on the internet, I suppose you have to be if you're watching this, get over to YouTube, pop out the chat, type some crazy shit in the chat. Tell us what's up. We got Emmett here, Katana, Andrew Cortado, what's going on, Lone Sophos. Dan's even in the chat. You can interact with him live right here while we do this thing. But Dan, let's jump right into it. You mentioned 10-year anniversary for ETH. ETH's been hot right now, up over 100% in the last 3 months. Though, believe it or not, at least for now, underperforming Bitcoin still on a relative basis. Where do you want to go? You want to jump into price action? You want to talk about some of what's behind this recent move? You want to talk about something other than ETH? I don't know. Where are you at?
I think we should take a look at some of the performance real quick, and then we'll get into. I think we just get into all about ETH. Like I really do think we should cover the 10-year anniversary a little bit, some of what's driving ETH's run up, and then I put together a slide for you to go over the crypto treasury companies. I know everyone in the chat loves that,
okay.
So I want to go over those and give them a chance to take a look at some of this stuff.
Beautiful. Well, really quickly, let's just take a look at a performance update. Maybe a little stale here. This is from 6:30 this morning. Put this in the Tasty Crypto email newsletter. Goes out twice a week. Wednesday morning market update most of the time, and Saturday morning all the time. So if you're not on that list, get over to tastycrypto.com, enter your email address, and you'll get the newsletter. Put a lot of our thoughts in there, trade ideas. Dan's got his lock of the week or pick of the week every week, so you can read that in there as well. But from this morning, came in, and I think we're around these levels right now, but about 118 on Bitcoin. It's just been trading sideways here. We're a little bit lower. ETH, pretty much the same price, 37.55. Solana has kind of pulled back to the low end of the range. And I think the general theme that you're seeing here as we flip through is while you're in a bullish market environment, you're getting that pullback you probably would expect after just the ripper we had at the beginning of July. Like 2 weeks, just everybody felt great. New all-time high in Bitcoin. Inevitably, you get a little bit overbought conditions and you get that pullback. I think it presents an opportunity what do you think in terms of just double-digit price action to the downside here in some things, but everything taking a breather? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I kind of echo that sentiment, right? We've had such a bullish July, kind of manic July here. ETH is up a ton as far like relatively still down on the year, which is kind of crazy versus Bitcoin. But I think we've just exhausted this run a little bit and we'll see a pullback. I think historically, not that crypto moves in the same way, but historically, like August is always kind of like we take a breather.
It'll be quiet.
Summer. I guess if you want me to give sort of a range of what I'm looking at for ETH, I'm looking for it to pull back around 3,400.
Okay.
3,500 is where I think this pullback comes. Some of the stuff we look at on the chart and some of the technicals we follow, I think is showing that we're kind of slowing on that run up. Some of the majors sold maybe pulling back to like 150, 140, and then Bitcoin, could get back down around 110 if we're just looking at some of this. So I have, I'm not really necessarily buying a lot right here. I'm kind of waiting to see what happens over the next couple weeks. Fed announcement came out today.
Yeah, no change to rates.
No change, which
was expected.
Yeah. So I would just look for this run up that we had over the last month that kind of it's exhausted itself and we'll see a little bit of a pullback.
Yeah, that's the way that I'm trading it as well. I'm just quick check of the S&P futures right now, up 0.5%. So yeah, maybe a little bit of intraday kind of swings there, but not a lot of volatility. That remains the theme, whether that's when you look at the VIX here, which I think I've got, let me see. I've got the VIX at 15. Probably could go lower here if we get a quiet August, though there can be some surprises at times. Looking at volatility in crypto, I mean, Bitcoin implied vol at 37% is back near its yearly low, pretty much at an IV rank of 0, as low as it's been over the last year. ETH trending lower, though implied vol is almost double what we see when we look at Bitcoin. Still a premium in here, realized is lower than implied, so you get that premium. But when you look at those levels, based off of these implied volatility, I think kind of lining up with what you mentioned too, you could probabilistically see ETH down to 3,400, Bitcoin around 110 there. Here, the rest that we track, Solana hasn't moved more than $15, it seems, in some time, at least in terms of the expected move. But that's the way that I would trade it. You got to kind of be patient. Don't force things. It feels like, it's never going to get back down to that low end of the range, and then it does. Right. And sometimes pretty quickly. I, again, think those are opportunities, at least in this market environment. I think the macro backdrop, too, still supports it. Liquidity perspective or profile picture, whatever you want to call it, supports it as well. So quick look at what's going on in the market, and that dip, which I think is short term, is underway. I guess elsewhere, Dan, let's talk about ETH a little bit here. A theme that we've seen over the last few months, and it's really starting to catch fire, is companies going out, raising capital, some new companies even starting, going public via SPAC in some cases, but companies going out, raising capital for the purpose of buying crypto.
Yeah.
I think on the surface, people are like, what? That's got to be a bad sign, right? How do you think about that? Because it's really starting to pick up. And here you can see exactly what we're talking about. This is a graph depicting Ethereum crypto treasury companies and their aggregate holdings, which have completely exploded in really the last month and a half. Yeah,
so I think that this is kind of a bunch of people tailing what Saylor did with MicroStrategy and
with ETH this time.
With ETH this time, where they're able to kind of go out and, I don't know all the details, but they're able to go out and they're able to sort of buy into these publicly traded companies, issue more shares, use the money raised from the issuance of shares, go out and buy ETH and hold it on the balance sheet of these companies. And basically it's a easily accessible vehicle for the public to buy and get exposure of for Ethereum. So, we started seeing this kind of come into the public view back in early June. And you can see.
Yeah, I've got this is a headline from the Wall Street Journal about 5 days ago, but it's referencing The hottest business strategy this summer is buying crypto, of course. Since June 1st, 98 companies have announced plans to raise over $43 billion to buy Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. I've got to imagine a big chunk of that is strategy.
Yeah.
And we are looking at both Bitcoin and others. But just to put things in perspective, $43 billion has been raised for the purpose of buying crypto since June 1st.
Yeah. And if you go to the next slide, I have a comparison of some of the biggest ETH treasury companies compared to the just ETH spot. And you can see here, one of the things that you want to take a look at is this MNAV, which is multiple of NAV, which is kind of how some of these traders are playing it, where is there a premium of, is it trading at a premium of what they hold in tokens, right? So that's what that MNAV is showing. But yeah, I mean, amount raised, SBET, 279 million to go out and buy ETH, Game, 80 million, Bitminer, which is Tom Lee's company, 268 million. And then this BTBT, which is like Bit Technologies or something, 402 million.
Okay, and that's just comparing. So when you're looking at that, the multiple of the net asset value, or that premium there, you're looking at net asset value. Let's take BTBT at the bottom there. Net asset value of 457 million, market cap double that, 916.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's kind of been this trend, and you've seen that.
Do you think it continues?
I mean, I think where we're going to get to is they're going to start with Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, go to ETH, and now you're going to see these ones that raise for like altcoins, and you're already seeing it, right? Solana, UpXE, UPXY or UPXI is one going to buy Solana. I saw one for Sui.
BitTensor, there's a couple maybe now.
Yeah. So you're seeing like these like altcoin ones happen, and I don't know if that tracks as well, right? Like I don't know. So you go further out on the risk curve here, but I think it'll continue. The other thing is we got to take a look at the flows of Ethereum ETFs because.
Oh yeah, let's jump to that really quickly.
Because I think.
Remember when ETH was dead?
Yes, exactly. Like, remember for the first year when these ETH ETFs launched, they were just like, "There's just no appetite for this. It's dead. It's not dead. This is just how this."
It's like it's going to be a different cycle this time, where it would only be Bitcoin. Which, to that point, Bitcoin has certainly outperformed to date.
Right.
But I still think we're 1 year or so post halving in the cycle. It might be early, but the narrative was different cycle this time. It'll just be Bitcoin sucking up all the flows, and everything else is dead.
Right. Exactly. So that seems to have been proven wrong. I don't know. In past cycles, this always happens, right? Everyone piles into Bitcoin. Bitcoin kind of takes off. It outperforms, and then people rotate into ETH and other altcoins. That's how we get this rotation, right? People get rich on chain. People get rich in crypto, and they move to more crypto. They don't necessarily take it and move it back out to fiat. So that's this rotation you're seeing, and with the spot ETFs, you can kind of track that. Spot Ethereum ETFs, you can kind of track that. So we've had some of the largest record inflows for ETH ETFs over the last couple of weeks. So I think that's what that graph on the right is showing there.
Yeah, the last data point I saw earlier in the week was something like 11-ish billion, a little bit over 11 billion in ETF inflows into Bitcoin and ETH combined for the month of July.
Right.
It's like blows it out of the water.
Right.
Absolute record. And big, like you mentioned, big inflows here. And you can see trading volumes starting to pick up as well in ETH ETFs.
And how do you look at those inflows? Is that like demand for ETH? Is ETH being locked up? Like that's kind of where I get confused is, okay, we got all these inflows. Sure. Like maybe it's buying ETH, but is it being staked? Is it being taken, is the supply going down or?
So at this point, I don't think that any of at least the ETFs that are listed here on U.S. exchanges can stake their ETH. That could be a catalyst where you could see an impact on some of the supply. But I just think of it, as capital flows into the fund, right? You're going to have a net inflow or outflow, and it's going to kind of ebb and flow, I suppose. But if you get consistent inflows into these funds that go out and then buy ETH, that's demand for long-term investment or short-term speculation, whatever it might be. but that should have an impact on the price, right? We're not going to be able to look at that and say, oh, for the most part, if we see this inflow, we're going to get this ETH price. Not necessarily. But when you have a massive wave of demand against the supply, and ETH can be disinflationary in terms of its supply dynamic or inflationary at times, there is an infinite amount in a sense versus a finite amount with a supply cap like Bitcoin. But if demand overwhelms supply, you're going to naturally get higher prices. If we jump to this next slide, I want to talk through that a little bit more. So let me actually go back one. 98, what was it? 98 companies, 40 some billion buying crypto. This is just ETH, but just look at the rise here in token holdings over the last month and a half, and we can see what the price has done as well. When we compare this to Ethereum supply, so you've got all these companies that have come out and they've said, look, we're going to buy 50 million, 100 million, a billion worth of ETH, whatever it might be. It starts to really stack up. You can compare that to the supply growth of Ethereum via validator rewards. And we know there's a burn mechanism, and we don't have to get into the technicals there. But if we just look at supply growth of less than 1% per year, and this is based on the past 30 days, and it's just annualizing it from that rate. And this is from ultrasound.money if anybody wants to check it out on their own at another point. But we've got issuance running right now at about 3 billion ETH per year.
US dollars.
In terms of US dollars, yeah. $3 billion worth of ETH, sorry. If we see 10 billion, 20 billion, and I'm just making up like massive arbitrary numbers here, but if that starts to come in from a flow perspective, all kind of within the same time frame, I mean, I would bet on the price going up.
Right.
Right? Does that mean it goes to 4, 5, 6? Maybe. Doesn't mean it goes to 100,000. We're not calling for that. But this is just kind of the setup that we have right now. And couple of months ago, you saw a headline here, a headline there of this company is raising 100 million to buy a little bit of crypto. They're mostly in Bitcoin. Then you started to see some other tokens, and you've consistently seen this now around ETH. And I would imagine that it slows down at some point, but there's significant demand in addition to everybody that's building on this. And oh, by the way, JP Morgan Chase and Coinbase just inked a deal. Right. I mean, there's a lot happening that I think pushes this a lot higher, and it's right to focus on ETH at this point.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, where are all the applications being built? DeFi applications, some of the rails, like it is ETH. Obviously, there's other use cases for other chains, and we oftentimes trade them too. But I think to your point about the setup, like the supply dynamics match what you're talking about, or kind of support what you're talking about. You have all these public treasury companies buying up ETH. We're getting that rotation, that cycle rotation from like Bitcoin into ETH and probably other altcoins. Coinbase and all these companies are, building out infrastructure on it. It just kind of makes sense, I think, that this is sort of where we're at.
Yeah, I think there's a high probability we go up here in the next 6 to 12 months. I mean, that's the way that I'm playing it. You want to sell at some point, clearly. Timing can be everything in these markets. I'm trying to find an opportunity to maybe buy it slightly lower. 35, you had mentioned 3,400 here. So if we get that dip, we'll be active on the follow page. But one thing I want to take a look at, and Nick Batista mentioned this on Options Trading Concepts Live on Monday. We do the crypto version of the show. But he talked about the vol, and I think you had pointed this out to me, maybe it was today or yesterday, but the volatility in these SBET options at a time where, and I'm sure you're going to see this for others that have options, and we do have an earnings announcement upcoming on the 13th for this one, but the implied vol here on the upside in those call options is pretty wild versus kind of the lower implies that we're seeing on the spot ETFs themselves. And I think that also reflects the MNAV that you pointed out, where these vehicles themselves are trading at a premium to the net asset value.
Right.
Because people are looking at this as, a short-term speculative vehicle.
Right.
At least I think that's what that's signaling. Presumably over a long period of time, we see that come down a little bit. And the value or the price reflects the actual net asset value.
Right. Yeah. I again, like I get this secondhand from some of the trading groups I'm in, but a lot of what they're looking at is this MNAV, this kind of like premium to net asset value metric. And I don't, I guess trading that, if we're looking at the implied vol on some of these options,
This is wild, man.
yeah, like you're looking, I guess, August 15th. If you want to pull up on
Yeah, let's pull those
SBET,
up.
yeah, August 15th, the implied vol at the money 145,
Yep.
145, and then if you go to the ETH ETF, because that's what you're comparing, right? August 15th, which you have positions on in this, huh?
Yeah, I do. I've got some calls that I had owned earlier, have recently sold some calls against them. Maybe even look to buy those back. Don't have too much time here, but yeah, I've been pretty active at times in some of the upside calls here. But vol is not as cheap as it was. I would argue it's still kind of cheap, but a little bit higher underlying price. I think we were looking at a $19 price versus $28 price. But to your point, 66% vol here. The other thing that stands out to me, if we go back to SBET, look at how, you do have the earnings announcement, but does it double off of that? I mean, look at so at $19 underlying, and you're still getting about, let's call it 50 cents to go out there to the 38 strike. Or if we just come in, I mean, you can see the 1 and 2 standard deviation moves here. You're still getting paid $1 to go another 10 points higher here to 29. That's a 200% implied vol on a per strike basis. You can buy the underlying for $19.56 and sell a call option against it at those levels.
Yeah.
And hedge a good chunk of your downside here too, if you wanted to buy downside puts, but I don't know why you would, right? When
That's actually a good trade.
When you should go out there and buy those. But yeah, you can do stuff like that in here. I mean, there's just these are kind of arguably pretty rich options on the upside here.
I think so, right? You just said it, like go out, buy the underlying, sell 2 standard deviations above. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that would be a huge upside move, which is what you clearly want if you're long the underlying. So there's a lot of trade opportunities out here now at this stage in the cycle, I suppose, or given what we're seeing in the market. You have the delta move in ETH, and that happened very rapidly at the beginning of the month. I think we go higher, but this is now becoming a bigger part of the narrative, and we're kind of on the other end of, ETH is dead.
Right. Yeah, I might actually take a look at this when the market opens tomorrow, because I've been trying to figure out how to play some of these ETH treasury companies. I've been looking at them as just like, okay, is this bullish for ETH, spot ETH? Because that's what I do, is I trade a lot.
Yeah. I think and I think the answer to that is yes,
but
at least for now.
But for like actually, I guess you would say profitable or opportunities in the actual options on these companies, I think what you just said, very simple: buy the underlying, sell this massive premium, the upside, or even just try and sell sell the premium.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think on the other side of that, and what Nick had mentioned on the show too, if anybody wants to go back to that, you look at maybe opportunities to buy low vol in the spot ETFs versus selling vol in some of these vehicles that are trading at a premium when we look at it from the MNAV or MNAV.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I think just the fact that this is it's not often that you see, don't get me wrong, it could go down, but and again, the market environment we're in, at least for now, seems to be pretty bullish. It's not often that you just see something where it's like $19 stock price and the upside calls are trading at like a 200% implied vol with 2 weeks to go. There is an earnings announcement, but even if you went outside of that a little bit here, which you're going to have premium to an extent in there, but you're still close to that 200% vol.
September 19th, 1 standard deviation move, you're still looking at 168 implied vol.
Right. I mean, and we're looking at an at the money vol of 141 in this 51-day September expiration versus, if we go back to the ETH ETF and we look at the same expiration at the money vol, I mean, it's pretty much double that.
Right. And then what is spot ETH? You said it's implied vol 65%.
Yeah, and that's coming from, we look at the Volmax data. We've had those guys on the show. We look at the Deribit data, but the implied 30-day annualized is right Right now I had it, or this morning I had it 65%. You do have to look at that against the realized though, realized at 54. So you have a premium in there, right? That's the other kind of wild thing. We're looking at IV ranks in Bitcoin at the lows implied at 37%, probably goes lower. You know, we're over here talking about, oh, get long call options. They're cheap. They can always get cheaper.
Right.
See if they go lower into August, or if we get some movement out of this range. But you know, you got a low IV at 37%, but you realized is still 25. There's almost a 50% premium in there.
Right. That's kind of
so. You've been, even though this vol has been low, you've really been getting paid to just sell options in IBIT.
Right. That's what you've been doing that wheel strategy.
As realized continues to go lower. No, I stopped for a second just because we were at these really low levels of volatility. Figured, all right, it's going to pop at some point.
Right.
And there is a decent capital requirement there versus where I thought there might be some other opportunities. But yeah, if it pops again, I'll get back into that.
Yeah.
We've also had in a market environment where you haven't had much of a pullback to sell put options into that have gotten a little bit juicier on any kind of delta move. It's just been sideways.
Right.
But Dan, that's going to do it for our show. Thanks for coming on with me as always, and talking about ETH, maybe pumping our bags a little bit.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, we own some ETH.
We do own some ETH, yeah.
We hope it goes higher.
We hope you own some ETH too.
Yeah, I'm trying to buy a little bit here at 35 if we get it. And yeah, I think you could see 4. You could probably push higher than that. You know, we've talked a little bit at times about the ETH BTC ratio. Can you get back to a 10th against Bitcoin? I think you can.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we could see some crazy stuff happen. If you do see that, I'm also going to try to sell into it and take some money off the table if you get a $6,000, $7,000 or more ETH price. I don't think that's crazy. You know, it might have sounded crazy at 1.5, but we've been at, I think the all-time high in ETH was like 5.
Yeah.
Right. And that was before there were all these publicly traded companies that were buying billions of dollars of it.
And one last point on that.
It's crazy to say that now, man.
And I didn't hit this in the chart or the table when we showed it, but just to put this in perspective, in 2015, when this launched, when ETH ICO'd, they raised $18 million from whatever. They sold 5,000 ETH and raised like $18 million for the ICO. And now we have we have 98 publicly traded companies buying up billions of dollars worth.
ETH's market cap is $450 billion.
Yeah.
That's great.
So just to put that in perspective, you know, maybe it is worth it to just hold and lose your account login and come back in 10 years.
Yeah, buy and hold long term has certainly been the best crypto strategy, though. Man, this is a tough market to just stay calm.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, Dan, thanks again. That's going to do it for this week on the Tasty Crypto Show. If you are not on the email list and you want more crypto, crypto content from us. If you want more crypto, you can get that at Tasty Trade. Yeah. If you want more crypto content, sign up for the Tasty Crypto newsletter, tastycrypto.com. You'll see the email sign up there. But that's going to do it for our show. We'll be back next week on Monday. Until then, I'm Ryan.
I'm Dan.
Peace.